Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tearing apart a case study that, frankly, presents one of the most frustrating paradoxes I've seen in decentralized finance.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are looking at Cliza Systems, a token launch studio that has become this, prominent fixture on the base blockchain ecosystem.
And it's frustrating because Cliza had all the elements of success. I mean, the things that usually make a project bulletproof.
Right.
They had experienced leadership with, like, a real pedigree, a clear, ambitious philosophy, and they even had built-in structural security that prevented the classic crypto disasters.
On paper, it should have been a blueprint for stable long-term growth. It had everything.
Everything.
But the data tells us the exact opposite. So our mission today is to unpack a specific, comprehensive report that analyzes this protocol, its team, and critically, the performance of its native token, CLIZA. We're not just, reporting metrics here. We are hunting for the strategic, the economic, and the team failures that caused a catastrophic, overwhelming 90.2% price decline.
And that core paradox you mentioned, it sets the stage for everything we're about to discuss. You have a protocol designed for endurance over hype, which is their whole motto.
Yeah, their tagline.
Founded by people who truly understand complex systems, yet its token value collapsed almost completely in just a few months.
And the failure wasn't what you'd typically expect, like a hack or something?
No, not at all. This failure wasn't due to technical incompetence or, malicious intent. It was a failure of economic alignment and strategic prioritization. And that's a crucial distinction you have to hold on to here.
So competence doesn't equal commitment to the token's value.
Exactly. Competence does not equal commitment to token valuation.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with the architects themselves. When we talk about pedigree, we are talking about a level of corporate and academic achievement that it sets expectations sky high.
Absolutely. The core leadership is TK, the co-founder, and Francis Kim, who's the other co-founder and a strategy consultant and advisor.
And Francis Kim's background it's pretty stunning.
It is. I mean, when we look at Francis Kim, we're looking at a profile that is exceedingly rare in the typically anonymous world of DeFi. We're talking about someone who is the chief of staff at Uber AI.
That's a massive role. Chief of staff at a place like Uber AI implies a deep understanding of scaling complex tech ops, strategic resource allocation,
and navigating high-stakes corporate environments. It just speaks to extreme operational rigor.
For sure.
And that rigor is backed up by his academic background. He has an MBA from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania.
which is world-class for finance and strategy.
World class. And that's paired with a degree in applied mathematics from Harvard University. So this isn't a team that's just guessing. This is a team that is equipped to model, design, and execute really complex economic systems.
So when this caliber of talent steps into the crypto space, they aren't just building another flash-in-the-pan token. They came in with a very distinct philosophy for Cliza.
They did. Their stated philosophy was positioning Cliza as a token launch studio for the ICM era.
ICM, that's initial community minting.
Right. And they explicitly prioritize endurance over hype. That was their brand promise. Stability, infrastructure, long-term viability. They wanted to move away from the whole pump-and-dump mentality of the old ICOs.
Let's pause on that ICM era for a moment. What does that actually imply, and why did they latch onto that as their main principle?
The ICM era, especially on layers like Base, is all about rapid, low-friction deployment, where the community itself starts and governs the token creation, often without a big central pre-funded team raise.
Okay, so it's very grassroots.
Very. And Cliza made this happen by turning the really arduous process of deploying a smart contract, providing liquidity, and locking it into a simple social media tag. It completely democratizes the launch process.
Which speaks to their technical ambition. They built a system of unprecedented ease for mass adoption.
Exactly.
Okay, that technical ambition brings us right to the protocol's core function. How does it make launching a token so easy, and what was the immediate, maybe unintended consequence of that efficiency?
The mechanism is really elegant. It's a community-driven launchpad. If you want to deploy an ERC20 token on Base, all you do is you tag @Cliza on X, and the platform handles all the back-end complexity.
All of it. Liquidity, everything.
It handles liquidity creation and, crucially, the liquidity locking, which ensures a basic level of safety for the new token.
That sounds like immense utility for the ecosystem. I mean, supporting rapid iteration and innovation. But this is where it gets really interesting because that success, that ease of use, It actually created the core utility problem for the CLIZA token itself.
Correct. By enabling anyone, and we really mean anyone, to launch tokens for free, or at least with zero technical cost and almost no friction, the system just generated incredible market saturation.
And the numbers are huge. The sources say they supported over 30,000 token launches.
30,000. Think about that volume. While that's fantastic for your platform usage metrics, it fundamentally commoditized the launch process itself.
So, if launching a token becomes as simple and abundant as posting a tweet, the meta token that facilitates the whole thing, which is CLIZ, it loses its intrinsic scarcity.
Exactly. Why hold the shovel if the gold is literally everywhere for free?
Right.
CLIZ was supposed to be the key to the base launch universe, the main infrastructure token. But when the infrastructure is freely accessible and tokens are being mass-produced, the value accrual mechanism for that infrastructure token has to be incredibly robust to overcome the supply shock.
And that brings us directly to the fee structure, which feels like the central economic flaw.
The fatal flaw.
Let's follow the money, because this seems like the single most damning strategic failure from a team that should have known better. The fee structure seems designed to bleed value away from CLAZA holders.
It is the single point where the Wharton MBA strategy appears to have just, I don't know, completely failed. The fee allocation is structured like this. 80% of all trading fees from these thousands of launches go directly to the token creators,
The external projects.
the external projects. Only 10% goes to Cliza systems as the protocol fee. And a devastatingly low 10% is allocated to CLIZA holders who opt into rewards.
Wait, only 10%. Just 10% goes to the investors who got into the long-term vision of the platform.
10%.
That is an astonishingly low allocation. It's an economic slap in the face to the native token holders.
Well, let's quantify the scale of that value leak. If the platform supports 30,000 launches and those launches are generating substantial trading volume, which they were, even for a short time, 80% of that cumulative value is immediately diverted outside the CLIZA ecosystem.
It's a fire hose of value pointing away from the protocol.
It is. This concentration means that the economic incentive to accumulate and hold CLIZA is structurally weak compared to the incentive to just, identify and trade the next successful token launched on the platform.
So you're highly incentivized to be a trader or a creator, but not an investor in the actual protocol. It suggests a complete misalignment of incentives. The team prioritized ecosystem growth, giving away profits to attract users over token holder value.
And it raises a critical question. If Cliza's systems truly believed in endurance, why did they engineer their tokenomics for short-term platform adoption at the expense of long-term token accrual?
That 80% giveaway fundamentally capped CLIZA's value from day one.
It did. Any potential growth in platform usage immediately translates into an overwhelming outflow of capital away from the token holders. This is the structural economic misalignment that created the shaky foundation for everything that followed.
That explains the why. Now let's transition into the grim reality of the numbers in Section 2. Because a shaky foundation, when it gets hit by market volatility, doesn't just wobble.
It collapses. The performance metrics here are severe, and they reflect the market's realization of this economic misalignment. CLIZA experienced a catastrophic 90.2% price decline.
90.2%, measured from its all-time high in mid-March 2025, right through our analysis point in November 2025. Let's really dissect the timeline of that fall, because the speculative peak was incredibly brief. The token peaked at, what, $0.007005 on March 16th.
Right.
But notice the immediate rejection. Just 48 hours later, on March 18th, it was already down to 0.00339. That's a 50% drop in 2 days.
50%. That shows immediate and massive erosion of capital confidence, likely fueled by early investors realizing the tokenomics were just unsustainable.
That initial collapse wasn't a slow bleed, it was a market event. It signaled the end of the speculative phase.
And from there, it just became a slow, painful capitulation.
Yeah.
By November 18th, the price was languishing around 0.000364. I mean, it's just
Grinding toward zero.
a grinding path toward zero. It's what's known as the death spiral. No significant bounce, just consistent downward pressure.
And the short-term metrics confirm the panic wasn't over. The analysis showed a 7-day decline of 33.9% and a 90-day decline of over 73%.
Right.
When you see a full third of a token's remaining value erased in a single week, what does that tell you about the people still holding?
It tells you capitulation is in full swing. Those short-term aggressive drops are driven by despair selling. These aren't strategic exits. These are, margin calls being met, or retail investors finally just deciding to cut their losses after months of this.
And for market makers, that just screams stay away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It signals that the market is officially illiquid and volatile, scaring off anyone who might even consider buying the dip.
And speaking of illiquidity, we have to talk about the trading volume, which is, the lifeblood of any market presence.
The volume collapse is equally damning. In June 2025, we saw volume around $27,000, which, it's modest, but at least it showed activity.
Something.
Recently, however, that volume had dropped to consistently under $10,000.
Under 10,000.
To put that into perspective, for a protocol that was worth millions at its peak, volume under $10,000 signals a completely dying market presence.
That low volume means two things, right? One, there are no new buyers. And two, the existing holders are so discouraged they aren't even trading actively anymore.
The market has gone quiet,
Yeah.
and the quiet market leads directly to the mental state of the community. The sentiment is not just bearish, it is clinically depressed.
And the fear and greed index, which is a great emotional barometer, what did the analysis show there?
It was registered at extreme fear levels, 11.
11. Wow.
In crypto markets, an index of 11 indicates mass panic and deep capitulation. The only emotion left is fear. Any remaining holders are just terrified of losing the last fraction of their capital.
But what is maybe more telling than the negative sentiment is the absence of any sentiment. You pointed out this silence paradox.
This is critical. We scoured the usual hotspots, Reddit, Discord, Telegram. There was a striking lack of active community discussion.
Which is strange. Usually people are angry.
Exactly. It's one thing for a community to be loud and angry that shows they're still engaged and they want change. It's entirely another for the community to be silent. Silence suggests that the core investor base has simply left.
They haven't just lost hope, they've capitulated and moved on.
Completely disengaged.
And the silence clashes so sharply with the team's apparent activity on social media. This is the social media paradox. The team is clearly working, they have an active X presence, but they seem to be working on everything but the value of their own token.
Right. Cliza Systems has a significant footprint. 18,500 followers, thousands of posts. They're clearly committed to the platform.
But not the token.
Our analysis shows inconsistent and declining promotion of the CLIZA token itself. Their feed is not dedicated to shoring up investor sentiment or announcing TCLIZA utility upgrades.
So what are they dedicating their social capital to?
They focus primarily on product updates. The V2 platform launch, technical integrations like a Layer 0 bridge, features that make the launchpad better.
Okay.
But most significantly, they spend a disproportionate amount of time promoting the other tokens launched through their platform. They are successfully operating as an advertising agency for their users, which drives platform usage.
But it starves CLIZA of attention.
Completely. It's the ultimate example of the team prioritizing the product, the Launchpad business, over the asset valuation of the CLIZA token.
So the platform succeeds by generating hype for external projects, but the native token is left to wither in the background.
And the engagement metrics reflect the market's apathy. Replies are typically between 11 and 46, likes from 35 to 162.
Which for 18,000 followers is nothing.
It's abysmal. It screams limited organic enthusiasm. The most substantial recent discussions were about the V2 launch features, not what those features meant for CLIZA holder rewards or governance. It just confirms their strategic choice, product over investors.
So we've established the economic design was broken, the metrics are catastrophic, and the team's communication strategy was misaligned. But let's shift to section 3, because this is where the paradox gets even deeper. This highly qualified team, despite their strategic failures, did implement critical professional security measures. They built a safe house, even if the foundation was weak.
This is the nuance that separates Cliza from a typical scam. The team is demonstrably competent when it comes to smart contract security fundamentals. They put in structural protections specifically designed to prevent a rug pull.
Okay, what specifically did they implement to earn that high mark on security?
The single most crucial protection is the use of permanently locked liquidity pools via Uniswap V3 NFTs.
Okay.
By using V3 NFTs, the liquidity is locked by the contract itself, making it technically impossible for the developers TK or Francis Kim to drain the funds from the pool. This is a massive sign of good faith and structural safety.
So that structural guarantee is a core part of that endurance promise. An investor can lose money from the market, but not because the founding team decides to steal everything.
Exactly. They eliminated the single biggest systemic risk in the entire sector.
Mm.
And on top of that, the contract uses obfuscated contract addresses designed to prevent front-running and bot sniping during new token launches.
So again, this points to a team that understands security. They delivered on the promise of not being malicious.
They did.
But here's the challenge, and this is where that competence narrative breaks down. Wait, you have people from Uber AI and Harvard. They took the time to build a complex, permanent liquidity lock, which takes real effort, yet they skipped the professional security audit.
Right?
Doesn't that suggest they were too confident in their own code? Like a bit of hubris?
That is the core conflict.
Mm.
It suggests extreme hubris. They might have been so confident in their own academic and professional background that they just deemed a professional third-party audit unnecessary, a waste of time and money.
But for a protocol handling this kind of volume, the absence of any public third-party audits from firms like CertiK or OpenZeppelin, that's a non-negotiable red flag.
It's a deal breaker.
So for the listener, why is the lack of an audit so disqualifying, even if the liquidity is locked?
Because locked liquidity prevents developer theft. A professional security audit verifies the code's integrity against external attack vectors or internal logic flaws, especially in complex economic mechanisms.
Like the fee distribution.
Exactly. Without an audit, we have fundamental, unanswered questions. Are there reentrancy vulnerabilities? Is that fee routing mechanism, that crucial 10% for CZLIZA holders, is it being calculated and distributed correctly in all scenarios? Is there a flaw in a governance function they might add later? The market can't verify the security of these active elements without an audit.
And adding to that opacity, there's the code verification status itself.
Yes. While the contract address is known on BaseScan, there's no verified source code publicly available. This makes in-depth external code review incredibly difficult for anyone outside the team. It's another layer of avoidable opacity.
So we have a system that's safe from a rug pull, but it bypassed the critical professional scrutiny required for a major financial protocol. Now, let's go back to that liquidity mechanism, because the safety feature, the permanent lock, it created its own economic drag. You called it permanent price discovery friction.
This is a deep point of analysis. While permanently locked liquidity is excellent for preventing developer exit scams, it creates this structural friction that actively discourages the market from establishing a higher price floor.
Can you explain that friction with an analogy?
Sure. Imagine the liquidity pool as a tightly sealed jar of money. If a major investor, a whale, wants to enter the market and buy, say, $1 million worth of CLIZA, they need that jar to be flexible and deep. If the liquidity is permanently locked, it's often also shallow, or at least it's difficult to expand quickly.
So what happens when a whale tries to buy a massive quantity from a shallow, locked pool?
They face immediate extreme slippage. Their massive buy order instantly consumes the limited available liquidity at low prices, pushing the price up sharply, but it simultaneously forces them to pay a huge premium or slippage on their whole order.
It punishes big buyers.
It punishes large capital injections. Large entrance institutional or big retail investors, they demand the flexibility to deploy and adjust liquidity. So the safety feature of the permanent lock, ironically, limits the market's ability to grow dynamically. It traps existing capital and discourages new, large capital from coming in.
That is a stunning inversion. The feature designed for long-term trust actively throttled the potential for long-term growth.
It forced TCLIZA to remain a micro-cap project, incapable of attracting the big money that actually moves valuations.
So now that we've analyzed the structural flaws, the weak tokenomics, and this liquidity friction, let's move to Section 4 and assign responsibility. Based on the data, how much of this 90% drop is due to the team versus just, external market forces?
The analysis assigns moderate to significant responsibility directly to the team. And again, we have to stress this was not due to malicious intent. This catastrophic decline was caused by profound strategic, economic, and managerial failures.
They were competent at building the engine, but disengaged from actually driving the vehicle.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So let's start with the most visible failure: their inability to leverage their own platform's success.
They exhibited fundamentally weak marketing and promotion for CLIZA itself. They are running one of the most successful high-volume token launchpads in the Base ecosystem, yet they failed completely to translate that success into adoption or utility demand for their own token.
They became the platform everyone used to launch other successful tokens.
But CLIZA never captured any of the value from that
Huh.
utility. The platform became a massive value siphon.
And what about utility expansion? If the only use case is earning 10% of transaction fees, that's not a utility, it's a weak dividend.
Right.
What crucial developments were missing?
The lack of utility expansion is glaring. XELIZA is fundamentally stuck in its initial, poorly incentivized fee-sharing mechanism. For a project with their stated ambitions, we should have seen crucial developments like governance upgrades.
Actual, robust, decentralized governance where holding 6 gives you real power.
Right. Power over protocol fees, or the development roadmap, or novel utility implementation. For example, mandatory CLIZA staking to get premium access to data or analytics, or even guaranteed spots in hyped-up external launches.
Or ecosystem partnerships that mandate holding it.
Exactly. Or just more robust staking mechanisms, something beyond simple fee collection. Time-locked staking, anything that rewards long-term commitment. None of this material evidence exists. They built a magnificent launchpad for others, but they forgot to build a profitable investment thesis for themselves.
And this ties right back to the poor communication. By focusing their social capital entirely on promoting their users, the other token creators, they were basically telling their own investors that the platform's job was to support other assets, not their own.
Absolutely. The communication was disastrous for investor relations. The team just failed to articulate a compelling reason why anyone should endure the volatility of holding CLIZA long-term, especially given the catastrophic price collapse.
So let's talk about those early investors, the ones who bought at the peak. They sustained devastating losses. What responsibility does the team bear for that misalignment?
Significant responsibility. The team has shown no evidence of articulating a recovery strategy or demonstrating a visible commitment to rebuilding value for them.
In the corporate world, this would demand an investor relations tour, a whole change in messaging.
Of course. In crypto, in the absence of a proactive, compelling recovery narrative, those early investors only have one rational choice: exit, which just continues to fuel the downward pressure. The team's silence became a self-fulfilling prophecy of capitulation.
Let's reiterate the structural economic issues one more time, because these were the silent killers that doomed CLIZA no matter what the market was doing.
The fee mechanism concentration remains paramount. That 80% fee allocation to external creators fundamentally means that CLIZA holders getting only 10% are poorly incentivized. We have to see this as an opportunity cost failure. The total value generated by the platform was enormous, but 80% of that opportunity was just waived.
And the market saturation generated by the platform's success, the ease of launching 30,000 tokens, that created a perpetual ceiling on CLIZA's value.
It did. The market was flooded with new, fresh, often more exciting alternatives born on the platform itself. This scenario creates an environment where token supply just exceeds quality demand.
Why hold the index fund when you can easily pick the next individual stock for free?
Exactly. The value proposition of the meta token was fundamentally destroyed by the hyper-efficiency of the platform it was supposed to support.
Were there any external factors here, or was this purely an internal failure?
External factors acted as a harsh spotlight, but they weren't the root cause. We certainly noted broader market weakness affecting small-cap tokens on Base during that period.
Yep.
And when the market turns bearish, poorly designed tokens bleed value much faster. Liquidity migration was also a big accelerator. Once the large early investors started exiting, that permanent liquidity lock friction just magnified the slippage and the speed of the fall.
So the general crypto market cycle just exposed the deep, pre-existing structural flaws.
It did.
It sounds like the external environment simply tested a system that was fundamentally not built for resilience, despite their whole promise of endurance. Let's bring this all together now in the summary.
Cliza on Base. Based on this analysis, it presents a moderately risky investment profile, with significant structural concerns that remain unaddressed. It's a compelling case of organizational competence without strategic commitment to the asset.
Let's summarize the positives one last time, because they do have legitimate strengths that keep us from just labeling this a scam.
The strengths are undeniable. A functional platform that supports high volume, facilitating over 30,000 token launches, an experienced team with high-level corporate pedigree, and, most importantly, those permanent liquidity locks that eliminate the risk of a rug pull.
But the weaknesses, sadly, overwhelm those strengths when it comes to long-term valuation and investor trust.
Precisely. The critical weaknesses are the lack of published professional audits, which just compromises trust, the extremely weak CLIZA-specific marketing and poor communication, which starve the token of social capital.
The non-existent utility expansion.
Right. The devastating 90+% price decline with no clear recovery narrative, the diminished community engagement, and finally, that crippling concentrated 80% fee structure that basically engineered the token for failure.
So the final verdict on the team. They are professional and technically skilled, but their strategic focus was just elsewhere.
The most accurate description is that the team is competent but disengaged from actively supporting CLIZA's valuation. They're focused entirely on the product, the launch studio, because the product succeeds when it is used, even if the asset fails.
Which is the core problem. The protocol functions exceptionally well for launching tokens, but this very functionality, combined with that 8-8-10-10 split, has effectively commoditized CLAZA's underlying value proposition.
The success of the business model is what destroyed the investment thesis.
They built the highway and convinced everyone to use it, but they allowed 80% of the toll revenue to bypass the shareholders who funded the construction.
And that strategic choice is the biggest lesson here. This case study offers some profound lessons for your own diligence. What should this experience mandate when you're approaching similar protocols in the future?
It teaches us that pedigree and basic security are not enough. You have to look deeper into the economic plumbing.
The importance of checking for utility expansion is key. Is the token stuck in its initial use case? Or is the team actively building new, compelling reasons to hold it? Does the utility directly increase demand for the token, or just increase activity on the platform?
And maybe most importantly, look past that initial liquidity lock and find the audit documentation.
Absolutely. Even when a team has strong credentials, the absence of a professional verified audit should be a non-negotiable red flag. It raises deep doubts about the security and longevity of the complex economic mechanisms that actually determine a token's success.
It forces you to always ask, is the team committed to the platform's success or the token's success? Because, as Cliza shows, those are two very different things.
And one can thrive while the other dies. They often are, particularly in the base ecosystem where launch velocity is so high. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought for you to consider. If a decentralized launchpad designed for endurance fails to build its own native token utility, if it succeeds only in making everyone else's token successful, is the whole concept of a meta token for launch studios fundamentally flawed by market saturation? Or does it simply require the team to commit to the valuation of its own asset as fiercely as it commits to the operational success of its users?
A question that demands critical thinking as you navigate these markets. The failures of the competent often reveal the deepest truths about structural flaws. Thank you for diving deep with us.
Always a pleasure.